Everyone thought this disabled alien girl was infertile until human nectar worked miracles. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink as the village of Neptunia settled in for another tranquil evening. Nestled among the rolling hills of the distant planet Xaria, the village was a haven of peace and simplicity, untouched by the chaos that often plagued the galaxy beyond its borders. In a modest dwelling at the heart of the village, Naira and Zane sat across from each other, their faces etched with worry. The flickering light of the candles cast shadows on the walls, mirroring the uncertainty that hung heavy in the air. "I fear for our daughter, Zane," Naira whispered, her voice trembling. "Naria's condition. It breaks my heart to see her suffer so." Zane reached across the table, his calloused hand enveloping his wife's delicate fingers. "We must have faith, my love. Naria is strong, stronger than any of us. She will find her way." Naira's gaze drifted to the window, where the first stars of the night began to appear. But what kind of future awaits her? The accident has taken so much from her already. And now, to learn that she may never bear children. A single tear rolled down her cheek, glistening in the candlelight. Zane gently wiped it away, his touch a comfort in the midst of their shared pain. "We cannot lose hope," he said, his voice steady and resolute. "Naria's spirit remains unbroken, even if her body has been shattered. We must believe that the universe has a plan for her, a destiny that we cannot yet see." As if on cue, a commotion erupted outside their home. Voices raised in excitement and confusion, drawing Naira and Zane from their somber conversation. They exchanged a curious glance before rising to investigate. The village square was alive with activity, the normally peaceful space now buzzing with energy. A crowd had gathered around a figure lying motionless on the ground, his body battered and bruised. Zane pushed his way through the throng of onlookers, his eyes widening as he caught sight of the stranger. "By the stars," he breathed. "It's a human." Naira gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Humans were a rare sight on Xaria, their presence often accompanied by tales of great deeds and heroic adventures. To find one here, in the heart of their village, was nothing short of extraordinary. The human was a man, his chiseled features and tousled brown hair, speaking to a life of battle and hardship. His armor, once gleaming and proud, now bore the scars of countless conflicts. Yet even in his unconscious state, there was a certain nobility to his presence, a sense of purpose that radiated from his very being. Zane knelt beside the fallen warrior, his hands gently checking for signs of life. "He's alive," he announced, relief evident in his voice. "But he needs our help. We must bring him to our home, tend to his wounds." The villagers murmured their agreement, their initial shock giving way to a sense of shared responsibility. Together they lifted the human, carrying him through the winding streets of Neptunia, until they reached Naira and Zane's humble abode. Inside, Naria watched with wide, curious eyes as her parents laid the stranger on a spare bed. Her heart raced with a mixture of excitement and trepidation, the presence of this mysterious visitor stirring something deep within her. As Naira and Zane set to work, cleaning the human's wounds and applying healing salves, Naria found herself drawn to his side. She studied his face, tracing the lines of his jaw and the curve of his lips with her gaze. There was something about him, something that called to her on a level she could not quite comprehend. A connection, a spark of recognition that defied explanation. In the days that followed, Naria took it upon herself to watch over the human as he recovered. She sat by his bedside, reading to him from her favorite books and regaling him with tales of her own adventures, limited though they were. She found solace in his presence, a sense of purpose that had been missing from her life since the accident that had stolen her mobility. With him, she felt seen, understood in a way that she had never experienced before. As the human slowly regained consciousness, Naria's heart leaped with anticipation. His eyes, a piercing blue that seemed to hold the secrets of the universe, locked with hers, and in that moment, she knew that her life would never be the same. "Where am I?" He asked, his voice hoarse from disuse. Naria smiled, her hand instinctively reaching for his. "You're safe now," she reassured him. "My family found you in the village square, injured and unconscious. We brought you here to heal." The human nodded, wincing as he tried to sit up. "I am in your debt," he said, his gaze never leaving Naria's. "I am Raven, a soldier from Earth. My ship was attacked, and I barely escaped with my life. Narya felt a deep sense of empathy for Raven, recognizing the pain and weariness in his eyes. "You're safe here," she reassured him, her voice gentle and soothing. "Focus on healing and regaining your strength. If you need anything, just let me know." Raven nodded, a flicker of gratitude crossing his features. "Thank you," he said, his voice still hoarse. "I appreciate your kindness and that of your family. I promise I won't be a burden any longer than necessary." As the days turned into weeks, Raven's strength returned, and with it his determination to unravel the mystery of his attack. He spent long hours in quiet contemplation, his brow furrowed as he pieced together the fragments of his memory. Narya, ever present at his side, found herself drawn into his world, captivated by the tales of his adventures and the strength of his resolve. She marveled at the way he moved, his muscles rippling beneath his skin as he practiced the ancient martial arts of his people. In those moments, Narya felt a stirring within her, a longing that she had never known before. She found herself imagining what it would be like to be held in his arms, to feel the warmth of his breath against her skin. But even as her heart soared with the promise of newfound love, whispers of doubt began to creep into the minds of those around her. Naira and Zane, once so supportive of Narya's budding romance, now found themselves plagued by worry and uncertainty. They watched as their daughter grew ever closer to the human soldier, her eyes alight with a joy they had not seen since before the accident. Yet in the quiet moments when Narya was out of earshot, they could not help but voice their concerns. "Are we doing the right thing, Zane?" Naira asked, her voice trembling with emotion. "Encouraging Narya to pursue this relationship with Raven. What if it only leads to more heartbreak?" Zane sighed, his eyes heavy with the weight of his own doubts. "I don't know, my love. I want nothing more than to see our daughter happy. But," he trailed off, unable to give voice to the fear that gnawed at his heart. The fear that Narya's infertility, once a distant worry, now loomed larger than ever in the face of her growing attachment to Raven. What if she falls in love with him, only to discover that she can never bear his children? Naira whispered, her words heavy with the unspoken implications. Zane shook his head, his jaw clenched with determination. "We must have faith," he said, echoing his earlier words. "In Narya, in Raven, and in the power of love to overcome even the greatest of obstacles." But even as he spoke the words, Zane could not shake the feeling that their troubles were only just beginning. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Narya and Raven sat together in the garden, their hands intertwined as they watched the stars emerge one by one. "Tell me about your home, Raven," Narya said, her voice soft and full of wonder. "What is Earth like?" Raven smiled, his eyes distant as he lost himself in memories of a world far away. "It's a place of great beauty," he said, his voice warm with affection. "Vast oceans that stretch as far as the eye can see, mountains that touch the sky and forests so dense you could lose yourself in them for days." Narya sighed, her heart aching with a longing she could not quite name. "It sounds magical," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Raven turned to her then, his gaze intense and full of an emotion that made Narya's breath catch in her throat. "Not as magical as you," he said, his hand reaching up to cup her cheek. Narya leaned into his touch, her eyes fluttering closed as she savored the warmth of his skin against hers. In that moment, all her doubts and fears melted away, replaced by a sense of rightness, of belonging that she had never known before. But even as she lost herself in the sweetness of Raven's embrace, Narya could not shake the feeling that their love was balanced on the edge of a knife, ready to be tested in ways she could not yet imagine. As the night wore on, Naira and Zane watched from the window, their hearts heavy with the weight of their worries. They saw the way Raven held their daughter, the tenderness in his gaze and the strength of his embrace. And yet, even in the face of such love, they could not help but wonder if it would be enough to overcome the challenges that lay ahead. For in a world where infertility was seen as a curse, a mark of shame and inadequacy, how could a love between a human and a disabled alien ever hope to survive? It was a question that haunted Naira and Zane, even as they watched their daughter blossom under Raven's attentions. They saw the way she smiled, the light in her eyes and the spring in her step, and they knew that they could not bear to see that joy extinguished. But still, the doubts persisted, gnawing at their hearts and minds like a cancer that could not be excised. They whispered their fears to each other in the dark of night, their voices low and urgent as they grappled with the implications of their daughter's choice. "What if the villagers find out?" Nira asked, her eyes wide with fear. "What if they see Naria's love for Raven as a betrayal of our ways, of our beliefs?" Zane shook his head, his jaw clenched with determination. "We will protect them," he said, his voice firm and unyielding. "We will stand by our daughter no matter what the cost." But even as he spoke the words, Zane knew that the road ahead would be far from easy. For in a world where difference was feared and reviled, a love like Naria and Raven's was a dangerous thing indeed. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, Naria and Raven's bond only grew stronger, their love a beacon of hope in a world that often seemed so dark and unforgiving. They spent long hours together, talking and laughing and dreaming of a future that seemed almost too good to be true. And yet, even in the midst of their joy, the whispers of doubt and fear continued to swirl around them, a constant reminder of the challenges they would face. But Naria and Raven refused to be cowed by the opinions of others, their love a shield against the darkness that threatened to engulf them. They knew that the road ahead would be hard, that they would face obstacles and challenges that would test the very limits of their strength and resolve. But they also knew that together they could overcome anything, their love a force that could move mountains and part seas. And so they held fast to each other, their hearts intertwined as they faced the future, ready to take on whatever the universe had in store. As the moons of Azuria waxed and waned, Naria and Raven's love only grew stronger, their bond forged in the crucible of adversity. They spent long hours together, talking and laughing, and dreaming of a future that had once seemed impossible. One evening, as the stars twinkled in the velvet sky, Naria and Raven found themselves alone in the garden, the sweet scent of night-blooming flowers hanging heavy in the air. They sat together on a blanket, their bodies close but not quite touching, the electricity between them palpable. Raven turned to Naria, his eyes dark with emotion. "Naria," he said, his voice low and rough, "I know that we come from different worlds, that our love is not without its challenges. But I want you to know that I am committed to you, to us, no matter what the future may bring." Naria's heart swelled with love, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "I feel the same way, Raven," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "I never thought I could feel this way about anyone, let alone someone from another world. But with you, everything feels right, like it was always meant to be." Raven smiled, his hand reaching out to cup Naria's cheek. "I love you, Naria," he said, his voice a whisper in the darkness. "I love you more than I ever thought possible." Naria leaned into his touch, her eyes fluttering closed as she savored the warmth of his skin against hers. "I love you too, Raven," she said, her voice barely audible over the pounding of her heart. And then, in a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, their lips met, the kiss soft and sweet and full of promise. Naria felt a warmth spreading through her body, a tingling sensation that started in her toes and worked its way up to the crown of her head. She gasped, her eyes flying open as she pulled away from Raven. What was that?" she asked, her voice shaky with wonder. Raven looked at her, his brow furrowed with concern. "Are you all right, Naria?" he asked, his hand reaching out to steady her. Naria nodded, a slow smile spreading across her face. "I'm more than all right," she said, her voice filled with awe. I feel different, like something has changed inside of me." Raven's eyes widened, his heart pounding with a sudden, wild hope. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Naria placed a hand on her belly, her eyes shining with a light that seemed to come from within. I think I might be pregnant, Raven," she said, her voice filled with wonder and disbelief. Raven's breath caught in his throat, his eyes filling with tears of joy. "Pregnant?" he repeated, his voice choked with emotion. "But how is that possible?" Naria shook her head, a laugh bubbling up from deep inside her. "I don't know," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "But I can feel it, Raven. I can feel the life growing inside of me, the miracle that we created together." Raven pulled her into his arms, his heart overflowing with love and gratitude. "A miracle," he whispered, his voice filled with awe. "Our miracle." They held each other then, their tears mingling as they marveled at the incredible gift that had been bestowed upon them. They knew that the road ahead would not be easy, that they would face challenges and obstacles that would test the very limits of their love. But in that moment, none of that mattered. All that mattered was the life that was growing inside of Xaria, the miracle that had sprung from their love. As the days turned into weeks, Xaria began to experience the first signs of pregnancy, her body changing in subtle but undeniable ways. She felt a constant warmth in her belly, a fluttering sensation that seemed to grow stronger with each passing day. At first, she and Raven kept the news to themselves, cherishing the secret that they shared. But as Xaria's belly began to swell, it became impossible to hide the truth any longer. When Nira and Zane learned of their daughter's pregnancy, they were overjoyed, their worries about her infertility vanishing in the face of such a miraculous blessing. They embraced Xaria and Raven, their tears of joy mingling with those of the expectant parents. But even as they celebrated the new life that was growing inside of Xaria, they knew that the road ahead would not be easy. They knew that there would be those who would not understand, who would see Xaria and Raven's love as a threat to the natural order of things. And yet they refused to let their fears and doubts overshadow the joy that they felt. They knew that their love was stronger than any prejudice, any obstacle that the universe could throw their way. As Xaria's pregnancy progressed, she and Raven found themselves drawn even closer together, their bond deepening with each passing day. They spent long hours talking about the future, about the child that they would raise together. Raven marveled at the changes in Xaria's body, at the way her belly swelled with new life. He would place his hand on her stomach, feeling the kicks and movements of their unborn child, his heart swelling with love and pride. And Xaria, for her part, found a new sense of purpose in her pregnancy, a reason to keep fighting, to keep hoping for a better future. She knew that the child growing inside of her was a symbol of everything that was good and right in the universe, a reminder that love could conquer all. As the weeks turned into months and Xaria's belly grew ever larger, the couple began to make plans for the future, for the life that they would build together. They talked about the home they would create, the values they would instill in their child, and through it all, they held fast to each other, their love a beacon of hope in a world that often seemed so dark and unforgiving. They knew that together they could face anything, that their love would see them through whatever challenges lay ahead. And so as Xaria's due date drew ever closer, they prepared themselves for the arrival of their miracle child, their hearts filled with love and anticipation for the future that awaited them. The news of Xaria's miraculous pregnancy spread through the village like a wildfire, igniting a spark of hope in the hearts of those who had long since given up on the dream of starting a family. The once quiet streets buzzed with excitement as the villagers gathered in small groups, whispering and speculating about the incredible turn of events. "Can you believe it?" a middle-aged woman exclaimed, her eyes wide with wonder. "The paralyzed girl, pregnant, and by a human no less." Her companion nodded eagerly, a smile playing on her lips. "It's a miracle, I tell you, a true blessing from the stars above." As Xaria and Raven walked hand in hand through the village, they couldn't help but overhear the chatter that seemed to follow them wherever they went. Some of the villagers openly stared, their gazes a mix of curiosity and awe, while others offered warm smiles and heartfelt congratulations. "Xaria, my dear," an elderly woman called out, hobbling over to the couple with a twinkle in her eye. "Look at you, positively glowing. And to think, we all thought you'd never bear a child." Xaria blushed, her hand instinctively coming to rest on her growing belly. "Thank you, Nanazel. It's a blessing, truly." The old woman turned to Raven, her gaze appraising. "And you, young man, you must be quite special to have worked such a miracle." Raven chuckled, scratching the back of his neck sheepishly. "I don't know about that, ma'am. I just feel lucky to have found Xaria." As the couple continued their walk, they couldn't help but notice the way the villagers' eyes lingered on Raven, their expressions a mix of wonder and speculation. Some even pointed and whispered, their voices carrying on the gentle breeze. "Do you think it's true?" a young man murmured to his friend. "That the human's nectar can cure infertility?" His companion shrugged, a mischievous grin spreading across his face. "Only one way to find out, right?" Xaria and Raven exchanged a glance, their eyebrows raised in amusement. They had heard the rumors, of course, whispers that Raven's essence held the key to unlocking fertility in even the most barren of individuals. It was a notion that both tickled and unnerved them, the idea that their love could be reduced to a mere potion or elixir. One evening, as the couple enjoyed a quiet moment in their cozy home, a knock at the door interrupted their peace. Raven opened it to find Soar, the jovial tavern owner, standing on their doorstep with a mischievous glint in his eye. "Raven, my friend," Soar exclaimed, clapping the human on the back. "I have a proposition for you." Raven raised an eyebrow, curiosity piqued. "Oh, and what might that be?" Soar leaned in conspiratorially, his voice lowered to a whisper. "The whole village is talking about your miraculous nectar and how it helped Naria conceive. I was thinking, what if we could share that gift with others?" Naria, who had been listening from the comfort of her chair, spoke up. "What do you mean, Soar?" The tavern owner grinned, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "I want to create a special drink, infused with Raven's essence, to help other couples who are struggling to conceive. We could call it the Nectar of Hope." Raven's eyes widened, a mix of surprise and skepticism on his face. "I don't know, Sour. It seems a bit far-fetched, don't you think? I mean, I'm not even sure how my nectar helped Naria conceive in the first place." Sour waved his hand dismissively. "Nonsense. Your love is a miracle, and I believe it can work wonders for others as well. All I need is a small sample of your essence, and I can take care of the rest." Naria and Raven exchanged a glance, uncertainty written on their faces. The idea of sharing such an intimate part of themselves with the entire village felt strange, almost invasive. "I'm not sure, Soar," Naria said softly, her hand resting on her growing belly. "It feels a bit personal, doesn't it?" Soar's expression softened, understanding in his eyes. "I know it's a lot to ask, but think of the joy it could bring to so many couples who have lost hope. Your miracle could become a beacon of light for the entire village." Raven sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I suppose it couldn't hurt to try," he said reluctantly. "But I don't want this to become some kind of spectacle. We do this discreetly, and we make sure everyone understands that there are no guarantees." Soar nodded eagerly, a grin spreading across his face. Of course! I'll handle everything with the utmost care and discretion. You have my word." And so, with a mixture of trepidation and hope, Raven agreed to provide a sample of his nectar for Soar's experimental elixir. The tavern owner worked tirelessly, blending the precious essence with a variety of exotic ingredients until he had created a shimmering, iridescent liquid that seemed to glow with an otherworldly light. The Nectar of Hope, as it came to be known, was an instant sensation. Couples from all over the village flocked to the tavern, eager to try the miraculous elixir for themselves. Naria and Raven watched with a mixture of pride and amazement as the drink worked its magic, bringing joy and renewed hope to countless families. As the weeks passed, the tavern became a hub of activity, with couples gathering to share their stories of success and offer support to those still trying to conceive. Naria and Raven found themselves at the center of it all, their love story a source of inspiration and wonder for the entire village. One evening, as they sat in the tavern, sipping on the nectar of hope and basking in the warmth of the community they had helped to create, Raven turned to Naria, his eyes shining with love and admiration. "You know, my heart," he said softly, "I never could have imagined that our story would take such an incredible turn. To think that our love could bring hope and happiness to so many." Naria leaned in close, her forehead resting against his. "It's a testament to the power of our bond, my love. Our miracle has become a miracle for the entire village, and I couldn't be more proud of what we've accomplished together." As the couple lost themselves in the moment, Soar approached their table, a knowing smile on his face. "I hate to interrupt, but I just wanted to thank you both for everything you've done. The Nectar of Hope has brought more joy to this village than I ever could have imagined." Raven chuckled, shaking his head in disbelief. "To be honest, Soar, I had my doubts at first. I never thought my essence could have such a profound impact on others." Soar grinned, his eyes twinkling with mirth. But that's the beauty of it, my friend. Your love, your connection with Naria is so strong that it transcends the boundaries of species and biology. It's a reminder that the universe works in mysterious ways, and that hope can be found in the most unexpected places. As the tavern buzzed with laughter and conversation, Naria and Raven sat back, their hearts full of love and gratitude. They knew that their journey was far from over, that there would be challenges and obstacles to overcome in the months and years ahead. But for now, they had each other, and the miracle growing inside of Naria, and they had the love and support of an entire village, united in hope and joy by the power of their bond. As Raven sipped on his whiskey, a thought occurred to him. "You know," he said, a mischievous glint in his eye, If this keeps up, we might need to start charging for my essence. I can't be giving it away for free forever." Narya laughed, playfully swatting his arm. "Oh, stop it, you. This is about more than money. It's about the love and hope we've brought to so many." Raven nodded, his expression growing serious. "You're right, of course. But I do worry about the long-term effects. What if my nectar stops working or has unintended consequences?" Narya took his hand, her eyes full of understanding. "We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, my love. For now, let's just enjoy the happiness we've helped to create and trust that the universe will guide us in the right direction." As the couple lost themselves in the warmth of their love and the joy of their unborn child, they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, secure in the knowledge that their bond could overcome anything. As Narya's pregnancy progressed, she found herself experiencing a host of new sensations and emotions. Her body was changing in ways she had never imagined, and with each passing day, she felt more connected to the life growing inside of her. But along with the joy and wonder of impending motherhood came a set of unexpected challenges, not the least of which were the sudden and intense cravings that seemed to strike at the most inopportune moments. "Raven," Narya called out one evening, her voice tinged with a mix of desperation and amusement. "I need pickles and ice cream and what are those little round things you told me about? The ones with the holes in the middle?" Raven poked his head into the room, a bemused expression on his face. "Donuts?" he asked, trying to suppress a chuckle. Narya's eyes lit up, a grin spreading across her face. "Yes, donuts. I need them, Raven. I need them now." Raven shook his head, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "My love, I don't think they have donuts on Xaria. In fact, I'm pretty sure most of the ingredients don't even exist here." Narya's face fell, a pout forming on her lips. "But I need them," she whimpered, her eyes welling up with tears. "Your child needs them." Raven's heart melted at the sight of his beloved's distress. He crossed the room in 2 quick strides, gathering her into his arms and pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "Don't worry, my heart," he murmured, his voice soft and soothing. "I'll find a way to get you your donuts, even if I have to invent them myself." And so began a series of culinary adventures, as Raven set out to satisfy Narya's cravings with a mix of human ingenuity and Azurian ingredients. He spent long hours in the kitchen experimenting with various combinations of flour, sugar, and alien fruits, determined to create the perfect donut for his beloved. The results were often comical, with misshapen lumps of dough and strange neon-colored glazes that looked more like something out of a science fiction novel than a bakery. But through it all, Narya remained grateful and amused, her heart swelling with love and appreciation for her devoted partner. As the weeks passed, Narya's cravings only seemed to intensify, and Raven found himself on a constant quest to satisfy her ever-changing desires. From pickles and ice cream to pizza and chocolate, he scoured the village for ingredients and recipes, determined to give his beloved everything she needed to nourish their growing child. But even as he worked tirelessly to keep Narya happy and healthy, Raven couldn't help but marvel at the way their love had transformed the village around them. The Nectar of Hope had become a sensation, with couples from all over Xaria flocking to the tavern to try their luck at conceiving. Sora, the tavern owner, was beside himself with joy, his eyes sparkling with excitement as he watched the elixir work its magic. Couples who had long since given up hope of starting a family found themselves blessed with the miracle of new life, and the village was soon abuzz with the sound of laughter and the patter of tiny feet. Raven found himself at the center of it all, his nectar now a sought-after commodity that had the power to change lives. He was hailed as a hero, a bringer of hope and joy to a community that had long been shrouded in despair. But even as he basked in the glow of his newfound fame, Raven couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. He worried about the long-term effects of his nectar, and the pressure to keep producing it weighed heavily on his mind. One evening, as he sat with Narya in their cozy living room, he finally voiced his concerns. "I'm worried, my love," he said softly, his hand resting gently on her growing belly. "What if my nectar stops working? What if it has unintended consequences?" Narya took his hand, her eyes full of understanding. "I know you're worried, Raven," she said, her voice gentle and reassuring. "But we can't live in fear of what might happen. We have to trust in the power of our love and in the goodness of the universe." Raven nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "You're right, of course," he said, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "I just want to make sure we're doing the right thing, for ourselves and for our child." As the couple lost themselves in the warmth of their love, they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. They had each other, and the miracle growing inside of Xaria, and that was enough to give them the strength to overcome anything. But even as they reveled in the joy of their impending parenthood, they couldn't ignore the changes taking place in the village around them. The Nectar of Hope had brought new life and renewed purpose to countless couples, but it had also created a new set of challenges and complications. Sour, the tavern owner, was struggling to keep up with the demand for the elixir, and the pressure to produce more and more of Raven's nectar was starting to take its toll. He worked long hours, often late into the night, trying to perfect the recipe and ensure a steady supply for his eager customers. But even as he poured his heart and soul into the business, Sour couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He had always been a man of integrity, but the lure of profit and success was starting to cloud his judgment. One evening, as he sat in his office poring over the latest batch of orders, a knock at the door startled him from his thoughts. He looked up to see Raven standing in the doorway, a look of concern etched on his face. "Sir," Raven said, his voice low and serious. "We need to talk." The tavern owner nodded, gesturing for Raven to take a seat. "What's on your mind, my friend?" he asked, trying to keep his tone light and casual. Raven leaned forward, his eyes locked on Soar's. "I'm worried about the Nectar of Hope," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm worried about what it's doing to the village, and to you." Soar's brow furrowed, a defensive edge creeping into his voice. "What do you mean?" he asked, his hands clenching into fists on the desk. "The nectar is a blessing, Raven. It's brought hope and joy to so many people." Raven nodded, his expression softening. "I know," he said gently, "and I'm grateful for that, truly. But I'm also worried about the long-term effects and about the pressure it's putting on you." Soar sighed, his shoulders slumping as the weight of Raven's words sank in. "I know," he admitted, his voice barely audible. "I've been feeling it too, the pressure to keep producing, to keep the business going. It's starting to consume me." Raven reached out, placing a comforting hand on Soar's shoulder. "We need to find a way to balance it," he said, his voice firm but kind, "to make sure that the nectar remains a blessing and not a curse." Soar nodded, a look of determination crossing his face. "You're right," he said, his voice growing stronger. "We need to be careful, to make sure that we're doing this for the right reasons." As the two men sat in the quiet of the office, they knew that they had a long road ahead of them. The Nectar of Hope had brought so much good to the village, but it had also created new challenges and complications that would need to be navigated with care and wisdom. But they also knew that they had each other and the support of a community that had been transformed by the power of love and hope. And with that knowledge, they felt a renewed sense of purpose and determination, ready to face whatever lay ahead. As Raven made his way home that night, his mind was filled with thoughts of the future. He knew that there would be challenges and obstacles to overcome, but he also knew that he had the love and support of Xaria and the strength of their bond to guide him through. And as he climbed into bed beside his beloved, feeling the warmth of her body and the gentle kick of their unborn child, he knew that he was exactly where he was meant to be. The universe had brought them together for a reason, and whatever lay ahead, they would face it together, united in love and hope. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, Xaria and Raven found themselves caught up in a whirlwind of preparation and anticipation. With each passing day, the reality of their impending parenthood grew more tangible, and the couple threw themselves into the task of readying their home and their hearts for the arrival of their little one. But even as they reveled in the joy and excitement of this new chapter in their lives, they couldn't help but encounter a few humorous misunderstandings and cultural clashes along the way. "Raven, my love," Xaria called out one afternoon, her voice tinged with confusion. "What in the world is a diaper genie?" Raven poked his head into the nursery, a bemused grin on his face. "It's a device that humans use to dispose of dirty diapers," he explained patiently. "You put the diaper in, twist it closed, and it locks away the smell." Xaria wrinkled her nose, a look of disgust crossing her face. "But why would you want to keep something like that in your home?" she asked, perplexed. "On Azuria, we simply bury our waste in the ground. where it can decompose naturally. Raven chuckled, shaking his head. I suppose it's just a cultural difference, he said, pulling her close and pressing a kiss to her forehead. But trust me, my heart, when you're changing diapers in the middle of the night, you'll be grateful for anything that can contain the smell. Xaria laughed, leaning into his embrace. I suppose I'll have to take your word for it, she said, her eyes sparkling with mirth. But I still think it's a bit strange. As the couple navigated the intricacies of human and alien parenting practices, they found themselves growing ever closer, their bond deepening with each passing day. They spent long hours talking and dreaming about the future, imagining the life they would build together and the love they would share with their child, and even as they grappled with the challenges and uncertainties of impending parenthood, they couldn't help but marvel at the way their love had transformed not only their own lives, but the lives of those around them. The Nectar of Hope had become a thriving business, with Sar and Raven working tirelessly to keep up with the demand for the miraculous elixir. Couples from all over Xaria flocked to the tavern, eager to try their luck at conceiving, and the village was soon abuzz with the sound of laughter and the patter of tiny feet. But even as the business flourished, Raven and Sour never lost sight of the true purpose behind their endeavor. They knew that the nectar was more than just a means to an end, more than just a way to bring new life into the world. It was a symbol of hope and love, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there was always a reason to keep going, to keep believing in the power of the human spirit. And so as Xaria's due date drew ever closer, the couple found themselves surrounded by a community of love and support, a village united in the joy and wonder of new beginnings. One evening, as they sat together in the quiet of their home, Raven turned to Xaria, his eyes shining with emotion. I never could have imagined this, he said softly, his hand resting gently on her swollen belly. When I first crash-landed on this planet, I thought I had lost everything. But now I realize that I've gained so much more than I ever could have dreamed. Xaria smiled, her eyes brimming with tears of happiness. I know exactly what you mean, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Before I met you, I thought my life was over. I thought I would never know love, never know the joy of being a mother. But you changed all that. Raven, you gave me hope and a reason to keep going. Raven leaned in close, his forehead resting against hers. And you gave me a home, he whispered, his voice barely audible over the pounding of his heart. A place to belong, and a love that will last a lifetime. As the couple lost themselves in the warmth of their embrace, they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. They had each other, and the miracle growing inside of Xaria, and that was enough to give them the strength to overcome anything. And when the day finally arrived, when Xaria's labor began, and the village gathered to await the arrival of the newest member of their community, Raven never left her side. He held her hand through every contraction, wiped the sweat from her brow, and whispered words of love and encouragement in her ear. And when at last their child entered the world, a tiny, perfect bundle of joy, with Xaria's blue skin and Raven's brown hair, the couple wept with happiness and relief. They cradled their little one close, marveling at the miracle they had created together, and the love that had brought them to this moment. In the days and weeks that followed, as they settled into their new roles as parents and partners, Xaria and Raven couldn't help but reflect on the incredible journey that had brought them together. They knew that their love story was a testament to the power of hope and the resilience of the human spirit, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there was always a reason to keep going, to keep believing in the impossible. And as they watched their child grow and thrive, surrounded by the love and support of their village and the success of the Nectar of Hope, they knew that they had found something truly special. They had found a love that could overcome any obstacle, a bond that could weather any storm. And so as the years passed and their family grew, Xaria and Raven held fast to the love that had brought them together, the love that had given them the strength to face the unknown and emerge victorious. They knew that their story was far from over, that there would be many more chapters to write in the years to come, but they also knew that as long as they had each other, as long as they held fast to the love and hope that had brought them this far, there was nothing they couldn't achieve. And as they looked out over the village that had become their home, the community that had embraced them and celebrated their love, they knew that they were exactly where they were meant to be. They had found their place in the universe, and nothing could ever take that away from them. So they held each other close, their hearts overflowing with gratitude and joy, and they faced the future together, ready for whatever lay ahead. They had love, and they had hope, and in the end, that was all they needed to build a life that was truly out of this world.